right, all right, all right. Welcome back. Welcome to another episode of Elev8. I am your host, Justin Caraway, aka JC Way. And today I have a very, very special episode. I am bringing in someone that is like a brother to me. I grew up with this young man. I am extremely proud of him and his accomplishments. And whatever this young man sets his mind to, he never ceases to amaze me. So, without any further ado, I just want to jump in because I'm so excited. I know he's excited. He's going to share some great information with us that's just going to help us out and also expand us and elevate us and inspire us to do great things. And that's needed in today's society. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring in my brother, my friend, Wesley Lowery, and I'm going to allow him to go ahead and give you guys a little background of himself and exactly what it is that he does. So without any further ado, let me bring him in.
Hello. Is my sound good? Can you hear me well?
Yes, sir. Got you loud and clear, Wes.
Awesome. Thank you. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Sorry, my phone's buzzing. Let me put it on silent. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And I've been looking forward to this ever since you contacted me, Justin. So I really appreciate it, man. I'm looking forward to it. I've been able to check out a couple of your videos, and man, you are really making some headway. So I just wanted to say congratulations to you as well, man. The same thing. Everything that you said about me, I feel the same way about you. You know, you put your head to it, you put your mind to it. And funny story, well, I'm not gonna get into a long story, but just real quick. I mean, I've always just growing up, I've always looked up to you and kind of moved the way you moved and trying to and just really trying to set my path and my goals sort of in the same direction in regards to just hard work, pushing, never stopping. And then just keep going. So a lot of this, I learned from the family, from our community, and just the mentors like yourself and others, our peers, growing up and and doing that. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh man, more than welcome, and I appreciate you taking the time out. And man, I'm just excited to just really share with the people what it is that I know you bring to the table and the fact that you're, doing things that most of us have really no clue. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just excited because I know my audience is going to look at the name and say, what's BCBA? What is that? So go ahead and give the people a little bit about you, Wes.
Great, sure, no problem at all. So the letters BCBA stands for Board Certified Behavior Analyst. So by trade, I received my bachelor's and my master's degree in the science of behavior analysis. What essentially that means is we look at the science of behavior, and what we do is we try to figure out ways to manipulate the environment by to increase the rate of a certain behavior or decrease the rate of certain behavior. So the practice of behavior analysis is called applied behavior analysis. And so if you go and you look that up and you type it into Google or whatever, what you're going to see a lot so far, and what I'm also doing as well, is you'll see a lot of this science is being implemented within a developmental disability population. Sorry about that. Got tongue tied. So a lot of what we do and a lot of what we're known for is working with children with autism, working with individuals with special needs and teaching them how to communicate, socialize, build independent skills, maybe do some observational learning and stuff like that. And it's all through the science of behavior analysis. Over the past couple of years within the science, there's been a lot of kind of rumblings and bubblings of like, okay, how can we expand, right? Because if we're talking about behavior, right, that's all we're talking about is behavior, right? I'm not a autism, I didn't get trained necessarily in autism. I do have the experience. But when it comes down to just like the science of behavior, we're just talking about just pure behavior. And that's looking at, kids with special needs. That's looking at businesses. We're looking at parents. Anything that involves someone doing something,
Right.
the science of behavior analysis can be applied. So the rumblings started to kind of unfold and started to occur a couple of years ago to say, okay, hey, let's really start expanding the science and really disseminate the science to see how can we be more effective within our communities, within our families that we work with, and then just for the overall population, right? So when we think about this, improving individuals' quality of life, right, making them happy, making them feel more independent, there's it's kind of a no-brainer to include, right, athletics, health, wellness, and fitness, because all those involve behaviors, right?
Right.
And a lot of it, can be motivation, it can be, routine, it can be your settings, the people that you're around, access to, right, healthier food choices, or access to um, workout facilities, or or whatever it is, right? All that involves some form of behavior pattern or routine, and that's where I come in, as the behavior analyst, is take a look. Okay, let's see what's going on in your everyday routine. How can we find little things to help get you on the right path to where you want to go? A lot of it started for me, because like I said, I was working within the special needs population, and a lot of clients that I work with, they have very restricted and limited diets, right? So they didn't want to eat their vegetables, and we're not talking about just little kids. We're talking about some preteens and stuff like that, to where, especially here in America, right, we're looking at childhood obesity, and that's an issue, right?
Right.
So a lot of stuff that I was noticing within my sessions, within my clients, was they were, and I use this phrase a lot, but they were eating just chicken nuggets and goldfish. And at the time, yeah, and and at the time, right, because of their limited restrictions of their food preferences and their, and their diagnoses, that's all the parents can really do at the time. All the parents had in mind was, I just need my kid to eat. It didn't matter what it was, because at the end of the day, if they were refusing food, they weren't getting the calories in. And
Right.
so, and I'm sure some parents, can relate in this situation, to where it's like, okay, cool, just eat mac and cheese. That's fine. As long as you're eating something, that's fine. Well, with some of the individuals that I was seeing, that was an everyday thing, right? And just due to that, right, it led to a lot of, you know, extra weight that was put on, lethargic, right? You name it, right? Just starting to pack on and build on health issues. And so I was thinking to myself, how can I, as a behavior analyst, change this individual's behavior to where we can either just start eating better, start exercising more, um, or just improving their overall healthy quality of life. And so that's how I kind of really got started down this path, and started exploring the different avenues of how we can apply the science of behavior to health, sports, and fitness.
Absolutely. So let me ask you a question in regards to that. I noticed you said it really is depending, not necessarily depending on the environment, but environment does play a major role in what you do. Correct?
Yes.
So when you say, like, because we did an episode a couple of, I think it was maybe 2 episodes back, where I had some teachers and some administrative aides on from like South Texas, like San Antonio area,
Hmm.
and we talked about the special needs and what is that doing, or what are they looking for, or what are they targeting in those areas. Do you feel like your profession can tie into that and possibly help in that regards? Because a lot of these parents, in my opinion, and this is just like the lady Tyler when she was on, exactly what she said. A lot of us as parents, we don't know our rights. So
Hmm.
seeking out someone like you that's a behavior analyst specialist that can say, hey, this is because of the environment. If you give this kid something different, or teach this kid or expose this kid to something different, it could totally change his behavior and also change the way that he's processing learning things, correct?
Yeah. So yes and no. Right.
Okay.
So when we talk about environmental changes, right, or the environmental or looking at manipulating the environment, right, we're not necessarily talking about right the weather or anything like that. We're talking about
Yeah, like
what's available and what's around him, right? So a really good example of kind of what I would do with a we're trying to increase. Let's just say we're trying to increase vegetable consumption, right? What we would do is we would always make sure that we have vegetables available for an option, right? So we would do that, but then we would also set up contingencies under which if you eat a vegetable, there's a more preferred or higher reward that's available for you after you eat your vegetable opposed to if you had a piece of chicken or had a piece of goldfish. There is a lower value reward, or what we would call a reinforcer, that's given to you or not given to you, right, to allow that behavior to either diminish or increase. So when we talk about the science of behavior, it's really all about the contingencies under which that are controlling our behaviors or not controlling our behaviors that can set the occasion for our desired outcomes. So, right. So one thing that we would consider in regards to right, really looking at the science of behavior and how it can apply is that um, we all fall into these routines and these patterns just within our everyday lives, right?
Mhm.
But that's how we move, and that's how we really succeed. That's how we survive, right? And that's how we enjoy our lives, right? We get up and we have a morning routine. We do the same thing typically every morning. We get up, we do the same route to work. We rarely drive new routes every single day. Now, there's some days where I'm sure that we want to try something new, kind of refresh, whatever the case is. But on average, right, the majority of the time, we're taking that same route to work every single day. And so then from there, things become mindless, right? They become like this second nature. So you just get in your car, you just go, and before you know it, you're at work, right? You're not paying attention to the street signs anymore. You're not paying attention to anything going on in your environment. But there's behaviors that's occurring the whole trip there. But also there are signals that are showing you that yes, this is the right way, or yes, there are rewards that are available for you if you continue on engaging in these particular behaviors, right? I turn right at this stop sign, that's going to be the reward to get me to work quicker, right? So that I'm on time, so I don't get written up and I don't have these issues, right? But if I go left instead, I'm end up being late. There's no reward or less reward there, right? And so then by default, right? Like I said, mindlessly, we always engage in sort of these routine type of behaviors. So let's take that same example and let's bring it into the nutrition world, right? So every night I come home from work, I may have had a rough day, right? If I sit down on the couch and I turn the TV on, I'm more than likely going to want to grab a snack,
Yeah,
right? But if I don't have any healthy snacks available in my fridge, right? There's no signal for reward for me staying on my diet. There's no signal for reward for me making sure that I'm staying within my macros or whatever it is, right? And so then by default, I'm going to automatically fall into that routine that I've been doing for the last, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or whatever it is. Those triggers in my home are going to signal you're sitting down, you're in sedentary position. Let's consume. Let's eat something. So then I just start digging in my fridge, start finding stuff, and I'll start eating. Whereas if I decide maybe not to watch TV in the living room, but then I go watch TV in the bedroom, it is a much harder it is a much larger response cost for me to get from under my covers, get out the bed, maybe put my shoes on, go all the way to the kitchen, whip up something, drive all the way back, right? So it's like those minor environmental changes makes a huge difference in breaking up those unwanted routines. If you're trying to decrease, right, the late night snacking with those with that food routine, opposed to you just changing up your environment and looking and not allowing those specific triggers to set the occasion for those late night snackings. And
Gotcha.
it's not just with, kids with disabilities, right? The company that I started back in 2018, our primary focus have been young professionals, along with, between, let's say, 25 to maybe 45. So if you have a busy schedule and you just don't have time to put together your meals, or you don't have time to really plan out and really take a look at, okay, what's really happening in my environment that's pushing me to always end up eating McDonald's for lunch, or always eating out for lunch. Like, how can I rearrange my morning routine? Or how can I rearrange my weekend to where I can plan for all of this and do it effectively, but then also maintain that over time? Because that's where that's where it really kicks in, right? Because we can all go out and say, yeah, I'm gonna go to the gym, just like in the next couple of weeks, right? New Year's is coming up. It's gonna be a lot of people signing up for the gym. It's gonna be a lot of people trying to get personal trainers, right? So when we look at it from the science of behavior's perspective, right, we're looking at the initiation of a behavior to occur. In that situation, behavior starts, right? The routine starts. The problem is that behavior starts to teeter out over time. What I do is I not only help get the behavior started, but then we also look on the back end to say, okay, how do we maintain it? What are the consequences, or what are the events, or what are the arrangements that we have within that specific contingency to help maintain that performance over time, but also identify what are the motivators that we can use to not only keep it initiated, but then keep it maintained and sustained across time. And that's where really the science of behavior analysis really kicks in. Because there's over, let's say, 50, 60 years of research articles and data supporting, right, looking at contingencies in that way, to where not only do we have to get something to start the behavior, but we also have to add something on the back end to maintain it and sustain it over time, to where it's more natural and you fall into that behavior change sequence to where it's no longer a bad habit. You know what I mean?
So it sort of pretty much becomes like your routine, part of
Ex-
your everyday
Yeah.
routine. Yeah, I understand, because I mean, with COVID, I noticed, especially a lot of the gyms had, shut down, and you had a lot of people freaking out trying to figure out, well, what is it that I can do? Because the natural response of, I had a bad day at work, or I'm feeling
Hmm.
sluggish, is, for certain people is, well, let me go to the gym and let off some steam, or let me go to the gym to, boost my morale, to feel good about myself again. And when
Hmm.
COVID hit, I noticed a lot of people, when the gyms were closed, it was the notion of, well, the gyms are closed, I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
That are actually like, okay, go outside and walk. But especially on the early stages of COVID, it had a lot of people scared, where nobody even felt comfortable. Like, well, I don't want to go outside because they said this thing is airborne.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
yeah, so I want to know, like, how did that affect you in your business, as far as the beginning of COVID to where you're at now? What changes have you seen?
Hmm.
How do you feel like this made your business model better or enhance your business model?
For sure. That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that question. So prior to COVID, right, we were doing a lot more face-to-face training. So we were able to work with a high school basketball team out in St. Louis. Prior to us coming in and working with them, they were a below 500 ball club. I mean, they were okay, but they needed some help. They had a lot of freshmen and sophomores. I think they
Mhm.
had maybe one senior and maybe two juniors. Um, but then we came in and we started to implement some of our training, our fluency training um, procedures, to where we're looking at increasing free throws. We're looking at pass accuracy. We're looking at reducing turnovers. We're looking at jump shots, dribbling, all of that, right? And we're putting all those into certain measures, and we're training, and we're coaching, stuff like that. By the end of that year, right, they made it into the playoffs and became regional champs. The following year after that, I think 4 or 5 of the basketball players got D1 and D2 offers. So that was a huge success for us.
Absolutely.
Shortly after that, we were able to go to Vegas to the NBA shootout for the summer. For the summer NBA shootout, and we did another free throw study with the athletes out there. So a lot of overseas guys, a lot of D1 prospects who are really trying to get looked at by scouts. So we were able to do that face-to-face training, right? And so with the type of training that we do, I kind of touched on a second ago, but we do fluency training, right? To where we're looking at teaching a skill to where, like I was talking about before, towards second nature, right? The same way that you get in a car and you drive, you at this point, right? You don't check your mirrors really. You put on your seatbelt, you check your phone, and you look up and you're there, right? That's the same way that we want to train our athletes, right? We want to be able to train them to where they can recognize what the defense is presenting to them. They're not even thinking about what should I do now. They're thinking already 3 steps ahead, because everything is fluid, everything is mind, everything is second nature. So we were able to do free throw studies with the for the NBA summer league, and then we had a gymnast we working with, and we started doing some soccer camps and volleyball camps. We were in New Orleans, and then our soccer player was in Arizona, and then we had a gymnast in DC, and a couple of football players in Tennessee as well. When COVID hit, everything came to a complete stop, right? Because we didn't know anything. No one knew anything really what was
Right.
going on with COVID. And so from there, from all the data that we collected, because everything we do is all database stuff. So we're measuring out behaviors, we're writing out what it looks like, we're charting all of our performance, and we're looking at our graphs, all of that, right? Because that's how we determine when progress is made, right? Because typically in your coaching, and I'm sure you can attest to this, Justin, right? When you have a coach and they're looking at athletes' performance, it's all based on really the eye test. Does he have it or not?
Right.
Really, right? And then you get back in line, and then the coach then decides to start a lineup and how the rotation, stuff like that. What we do is we take away that idea of the eye test, and we say, okay, hey, here's how they've been performing in practice, and we have data and graphs and statistics to show this is how well he was shooting his free throws during the practice, and this is how it correlated into the game time performance. Same way with passing, same way with dribbling, same way with jump shots, 3-pointers, you name it, right? We were measuring all of those specific skills, right? What we would call behaviors, and charting those performances and looking at how we can predict performance as well. So based on all the data that we've collected prior to COVID, we then pivoted and shifted to say, hey, we recognize that there's a huge deficit within the behavior analysis community and teaching or coaching from this perspective. So what we then switched into is started hosting webinars and hosting classes. So from there, I was able to create a 5-week course, 5-6 week course, to where those who are in the field of behavior analysis were able to get continuing education units, what we call CEUs, to help keep their certification active. So I created a 5-week course to help, like I said, individuals who want to learn how to do the science within health, sports, and fitness. I created, I think, over 25 hours of just webinars and and really trying to disseminate and get the information out to show, hey, based on what we've done prior to COVID, these are our findings, really, right? And this is how we've been able to be successful, and this is how we recommend others to be successful. But also, we're open to hearing feedback. We want to hear more. We want to see what you all are doing, right? So that we can continue to build on this mountain. So during the COVID, we pivoted towards more online teaching. And that's where, we've created the Team ABA University page. We partnered up with a couple of universities as well, where we got a practicum site at the Chicago School in DC, to where we're looking to bring students in to help train at our gym in DC, in Rockville, Maryland, sorry, where we do all one-on-one training. We do 3-on-3 training, and we're getting ready to start up a basketball league as well. So from teaching that course during COVID, we were then able to shift into doing some nutrition consulting, right? Because you can do that telehealth.
Yeah.
So then we started to really market and push. So we have certified nutritionists on staff, and they also double with the BCBA certification as well. So they have the same credentials as a master's level behavior analyst, along with the personal training certification, the nutrition certification, and then all of our sports coaches. They either coach currently at a high school or college, or they've played college level or professional. So from there, right, we started teaching. And then once things started slowly opening back up again, we were able to get the gym that we have now and start doing more of our sort of individualized training along with nutrition. And then just kind of building from there. So just recently, it's been a lot of just dissemination and spreading all the information that we've been accruing over time, and all that data and charts and stuff with different universities, programs, and different companies.
Well, I got a suggestion. Y'all need to, you need to contact that man down in New Orleans, Zion Williams. He's at 330 pounds. That's a little scary, man. So just honestly, like I just really want to know your thoughts on that. Like, what do you think it is that, I understand, like, when you hit a certain age, your metabolism slows down.
Mm-hmm.
Now for him, basketball is a job. It's not a hobby anymore. This is your everyday. And you got to take in consideration, it still is the mindset is a mindset of a child. So, I'm just wondering, do you think that it's necessarily his diet? Do you feel like it's the environment? Because, I mean, let's be honest, we know Southern food, and we know what comes with that. Do you think that plays a role in it? Or what are your thoughts in particular on a situation like Zion Williams, where he's already a bigger guy?
Mm-hmm.
You can see the mass on him early, but for him to get to this size, like, what contributes to that, especially being a tip-top, supposed to be a tip-top in shape athlete?
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of factors that play into his situation, right? So he had his injuries. Right. So I want to make sure that we state that first and foremost, right? He had his injuries, and that may have, and I'm gonna try to communicate as behavioral as possible, because that's where my lane is, and I want to make sure I stay in my lane.
Okay,
so,
I appreciate that.
So we have the injuries that we have to consider, right? And what that does with injuries, with all injuries, right? I just sprained my ankle 4 weeks ago playing ball, right? So I can speak on that. That limits the amount of access to opportunities to exercise, right? So that's pretty obvious there, right? It limits opportunities to run, opportunities to jump, right? All that stuff. So the opportunities to burn calories, that's decreased, right? So we got to talk that one up too.
Right.
Next, right? He went from college, right, Duke, to the professionals, right?
Yep.
At school, I'm assuming, right, his day was pretty filled up all the time, either with class, schoolwork, practice, all that stuff, right? So there was a lot of stuff there was a lot of this bad habit behavior that was incompatible with poor nutrition and lack of diet or lack of exercise, right? So we're looking at these not competition, but if we're talking about our schedule within a day, within blocks, right? Prior to the NBA, his whole schedule blocks was full, probably. I'm just guessing. So right, so that was incompatible with all the stuff that he maybe help him put on that 30 pounds, right? Next thing we have to consider are those competing contingencies, right? So just like you said, right, he's a young man. He's stepping into this new career. He's learning who he is as an adult, right? I'm assuming, right? He only did 1 year.
Yeah.
So he was probably between 19 and 20. So just in my experience, right, between 18 and 20, you're one person. Between 20 and 22, you're a different person. 23, 25, you're someone different. And then after 25, that gap, that gap starts to widen, right? To where like 25 to 30, 30 to 40, whatever the case, right? That's just anecdotal. So I'm not basing off of any science, no data. It's just kind of based on what I'm seeing and stuff like that.
Right, right.
But prior to him getting drafted, right, he may have been a different sort of kid mentally, or a man differently, right? To where a lot of the stuff he was doing at that age, he was still trying to carry over into this sort of different phase, right? And now having all this free time and limited access to the opportunity to exercise, right? That all of those, all of that, and all of those contingencies set up could play a role in regards to really maintaining a consistent body weight, really maintaining a healthy diet, and really maintaining that exercise that he needs. Because at the end of the day, right, we're looking at what's going to get us the most payoff, right? That's what it all comes down to each and every one of us, not just Zion, not just you, not just me. What's going to give us the biggest payoff in everything that we do, right? So if if I decide I'm going to go for a run, I'm going to go to my closet and look at my shoes and say, what's going to give me the best payoff? Is it going to be these boots, or is it going to be my Nikes, right? Which one will be the best payoff, right? Obviously, the running shoes will be. So the same thing for him, but it could be something different. What's going to be the biggest payoff, right? Me sitting down, eating a cheeseburger, it's going to be a better payoff because it tastes good. I'm not doing anything anyways. In the past, I've been able to eat cheeseburgers and not have a problem, right? Because we also have to look at the history of behaviors, because that's going to tell us the future of behaviors, right?
Right.
So in the past, if I always seen a stop sign, I'm going to stop. That's what's in my past. If I always see a green light, I'm going to go. If I pull up to a light and I see a purple light, I'm going to be like, whoa, wait a minute here. Yeah. I've never seen this in my behavior history. I'm going to do, whatever, right? So in the past, if he's been in this same routine to where, right, like I'm saying, these are just ifs and hypothetical from a behavioral perspective, right? If in the past he's been able to eat the same amount of calories that he was doing before, and now he's moving into this different stage of his life to where, he may not be able to do that due to his environmental conditions and his and his injuries, right? That's probably not the best option, but you also have to remember what's going to be the best payoff. And sometimes in our minds, we get into this routine of, maybe I can have this snack cake tonight because right now, this is exactly what I want. You know what I mean? So it could be, it could be a lot of that going on in regards to just those competing contingencies and having a lot of time. But he also has a lot of resources available for him too.
Yeah.
So then you really have to ask yourself, is there a lot of motivation behind accessing those resources to help him either stay in his healthy weight or help him rehab to address his injuries?
Right.
My bet would be there's not a lot of motivation right now, because when we're motivated to do something, we do it regardless. And it's not like a dig or a stab at him or nothing like that. I'm not saying that at all. But it's all about that phrase I said a second ago, right? What's going to be the biggest payoff? And it's not necessarily a mature, beneficial payoff. It's always like, am I going to eat this Snicker bar, or am I going to eat this carrot? the Snicker bar is going to have a lot more payoff for what I want right now. And that's a sugar rush, going to be the energy, and it's going to be the good taste and feeling of this candy that I'm consuming right now.
Right.
So I think that's what it all comes down to, is the contingencies under which the motivation is going to be accessible with that payoff.
So let me say this. So just, hearing you speak, I feel like a lot of it has a lot to do with psychologically where a person is at. Like you said, we all know the difference of right and wrong, but we also have the everyday behaviors that we show and that we exude every day. In a situation of, like you were explaining, when you go work with those high school kids in St. Louis, not only are you breaking down, like, okay, their free throws, their passing, their dribbling abilities, but what else are you looking for as far as, when we were in school, it was the whole thing of being mentally tough.
Yep.
What does that look like in your world?
Yeah. So, wow, it's a great question. There's so much to unpack there. Okay, let me address the first part of your question. It's one approach would be, is less about the psychological and more about the physical, right? And the reason why I say that is because, yes, your mental plays a role. However, it's very difficult to measure that within a standard unit to systematically introduce that into the scientific method, right? So you got to be able to measure it, you got to be able to observe it, you got to be able to get exceptional results, but then lastly, you got to be able to replicate it, right? There's also a few other ones in there, but the most important thing is you got to be able to replicate it, right? So if I was to say, hey, every time you get the ball, you need to be more aggressive, right? You remember Coach saying that all the time? Be more aggressive, right? So then I'll be looking at him, say, okay, you want me to like run faster? You want me to jump higher? Do you want me to maybe, box out harder? What is it specifically about being more aggressive, right? So if that was the intervention that the coach was trying to implement to improve me as an athlete, and then another coach comes in and says, hey, I need you to be more aggressive, Coach A and Coach B may be talking about two different things, right? Coach A may be talking about, I want you to run the fast break a lot harder, be more aggressive, go into the paint, right? The other coach may be talking about, you need to be more aggressive on defense. I'm going to need your hands moving more. I'm going to need active hands. You need to move your feet, right? You can't replicate that, right? In regards to looking at intervening systematically from a scientific approach. But one thing that we can do is say, hey, on defense, I want you to make sure that you have your arms out to the side, parallel to your shoulders, right? And they need to sustain there the whole time your offensive player has the ball. Coach A can see that, measure it, track it, graph it. Coach B can see that, measure it, graph it, and track it. Everyone in the gym can see it, right? So that's where we really focus on in regards to how we intervene as behavior analysts is we're looking at the actual physical behaviors that's in motion. And even if you don't realize you're doing it, we're trained to recognize those very minor or micro behaviors, also very large, and those gross motor behaviors as well. But we're trained to identify and say, hey, did you notice that every time you shot the ball, you did this little weird shimmy thing like Kevin Durant does, right? You know what I mean? So we can identify that and then figure out within a behavior chain of, okay, is this what's hindering your performance or is it not hindering your performance? And then we'll intervene right then and there, right? So that's how we would approach it from a more physical, behavioral approach. Now, when we're talking about mental toughness, right? And we're talking about, being able to bounce back from a poor play, right? You throw a turnover, right? And you see some athletes, they like, oh,
Yeah.
And you already notice it right away. Got to get it going again. You already notice it right away, that their demeanor and their whole sort of atmosphere is off. At that
Yeah.
moment, coach needs to sub them out. You need to sit down and regroup yourself and get your head back in the game, essentially. With that approach, what we do is within the science of behavior analysis, there's what we call acceptance and commitment therapy, where we start with the athletes to identify, okay, what are your values, right? What are your values? What are things that that you're trying to achieve? What are you committing to? And then how do you do that, right? So for those who are trying to really get themselves out of their own head,
Mm-hmm.
right? The acceptance and commitment therapy, right? What we call ACT, is a good practice to allow the athlete to recenter themselves, get back to recognizing, okay, what are my values and why am I here, right? That'll allow them to help them kind of refocus. They then go into mindfulness training, or maybe sorry, mindfulness training, sorry, mindfulness exercises if needed, and that can be a variety of things, right? That can be just focusing on your breathing, trying to tune out the crowd, whatever's going to help you just kind of refocus yourself and essentially get out of your own head. So we go roll into a little bit of mindfulness exercises, and then from there, we allow our athletes to kind of gauge and make adjustment to say, okay, hey, I'm good to go, or no, I'm not. But it's that bounce back that we're really focusing on, and that's I want to quote the late great Kobe Bryant, right? That mama mentality,
Right.
right? I'm sure you've seen that video of Shumpert talking about his experience with Kobe Bryant. He was killing them. You know what I'm talking about,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure.
He was killing them all three quarters, and then at the end of the third quarter, Kobe looked at him and said, "Hey, you had a great game, right?" Now, in the fourth quarter, Kobe came back and just destroyed, right? I think in the game he had 80 some
Yeah.
points, right? He
Yeah.
made everything, right? But in that situation, the majority of athletes or players would have recognized and said, "Hey, I haven't played well at all for these first three quarters. I'm probably going to be terrible again for the fourth quarter.
Right.
Let me
Just pack
just
it on in. Yeah.
yeah. Let me just go through the motions and not
Get
whatever."
through this game and we'll figure it
Exactly,
out.
right?
Yeah.
But then what Kobe did was, I don't know what he did, but I'm assuming it's something similar to he allowed himself to refocus, recenter, maybe some mindfulness exercises, maybe do some self-talking, whatever it is, right? To get him back in the game, to get his head back in the game and get his confidence back. And that's the most important thing. And that's our
Yeah.
focus, right? Yeah, you do a bad play or you threw a bad pass to create a turnover, but that's not who you are. That's just one play, right? And it's not. I mean, you don't want to look at it as I am the turnover. You can look at it as I didn't recognize the defense of set to then recognize that cue to then um, let me know not to pass the ball. So in
Right.
that situation, you're taking yourself out of the equation and you're putting all the focus on, okay, what were the cues? What was the set? What was the hurdle that got in my way? I need to identify that as the problem instead of as me as the problem,
Right.
and then learn from it, adjust, and then continue to play. I think that answers your question.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So let me ask you this because right now I'm working with some old AAU teammates of mine, and we have, I want to say, fourth, fifth grade guys right now
Mhm.
that we're like, working with and training. And for the most part, it's some that are more advanced than the other, which is totally natural when it comes to anything really.
Mhm.
Kids are going to be kids, and some are going to pick up things faster than others. But at what point or what age do you think it's appropriate to start using like your methods and what you're teaching?
Yeah, I think it can start at any age. honestly, because what we're talking about here, what the core of it is the sensitivity to the contingencies that are in place,
Right.
right? So if we can teach a kid, whether he's in second grade or in fifth grade, to say, hey, when you see a 2-3 zone, this is what you need to do, right? So in the condition of 2-3, right, in that environment, a second grader can learn and be receptive to, okay, when there's a 2-3 zone, I need to get the ball in the middle, right? Along with a college athlete to say, hey, when you see a 2-3 zone, you just need to get the ball in the middle, and that's going to break down the zone. You can either go to the basket strong, get the foul, or you can kick it out to the corner because there's going to be open people because everyone's collapsing,
Right.
right? So when it comes down to it, I mean, obviously you got to be able to dribble the ball and play the game, right? But the type of training that I'm doing is all about the conditions under which you need to do this skill or that skill, right?
Right.
So if I
Right.
say, hey, in the conditions under which you see a 2-3 zone, you need to pass the ball to the middle, opposed to under conditions under which you see a man-to-man, let's get the ball moving around the perimeter so that we can get the weak side open,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we can teach those two conditions and teach our students or our college athletes to say, when you see this, you do that. When you see this, you do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like what your example was with the stop sign or the stoplight.
Exactly.
You
Yeah,
become
yeah, yeah.
so
Perfect. Yeah.
accustomed to the behavior that it's second nature to you on how to respond to it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly. So I don't think there's no, like I said, there are foundation skills that you need for sure, 100%, where you got to be
Right.
able to play the game, dribble the ball, whatever. And if you can make that, if you have those basic skills down, then yeah, it's all about what behavior do I need to do in this condition or in this set, right?
Right. Right.
One thing that I've been exploring recently. Sorry, were you going to say something?
No, no, no. I was
Okay.
agreeing with you.
Um, One thing I've been exploring recently, if we were talking about looking at those micro behaviors, right, is looking at when to execute a specific dribble move, right? So if we're talking about basketball still, right, if you have your defender, right, and their feet are lined up parallel, there should be a certain dribble move that you can do, opposed to if their feet are lined up like this, right, you want to try to beat them on this side because you want them dropping that leg to get past their shoulder, versus if it's this way, right? So as an athlete, right, especially I would probably use Kyrie Irving as a great example. I'm pretty sure he's able to recognize those different conditions that the defense is showing them. And then he knows kind of second nature if I should do through the legs to get him to step back, if I should do the right hand crossover, left hand crossover, if I should give him a jab step or whatever it is. And so what we do with my training is being able to teach not only what Kyrie Irving's doing at that level, but we want to be able to teach our fourth or fifth graders, our middle school, our varsity players, our college athletes to recognize those same sets to where they, like I said, they're not even thinking about, okay, where are the defender's feet? Where's your shoulders placed? Oh, I already know I'm on the right side of the court. He's playing me to the baseline. Boom. Whatever move it is, right? I got it because I'm already thinking the help's already stepping up. I'm dropping off to the big man, right?
Right.
So we're teaching those same conditions that Kyrie Irving is able to execute and really break down the defense. We're just teaching it, like I said, from a behavioral perspective, from a more of a, like I said, just like a recognizing the conditions that's being presented and you executing on those skills.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this: do you find it challenging with older athletes than you do, let's say, a younger, more eager to learn, or really someone that's going to be accepting of what it is that you bring to the table? Do you find it more challenging dealing with the like when you say collegiate or college athlete,
Mm-hmm.
most of them have this what we call swagger, but they have the ego about them of, okay, I've done what I needed to do to get me to this point, and I know what I need to do to get me to that next level. Because let's just be realistic, most of them already have that cockiness about them, where
Mm-hmm.
it's hard for them to want to change the behavior in order to see a different result.
Yeah, we do see that because just like you said, right? They get into their own routines on the course. Like, hey, I already have my dribble package, right?
Right,
I got my through the legs crossover spin move. That works every time. I got that. I don't need to do anything else, and that works for me. So yes, I have seen that with some of the older athletes that we work with. But at the end of the day, right, we're charting all of our performance, right? We're collecting data on every single thing that we do. So yeah, we get the pushback sometimes, right, at the very
mhm,
beginning, but then we say, okay, hey, let's look at what you're doing and let's look at what the chart's showing us versus what we're trying to recommend, and you trying that out and then looking and then comparing those two data sets. So we say, hey, what you're doing is working 80 to 90% of the time. Awesome, fantastic. But what we're trying to recommend for you is working 90 to 100% of the time.
right, right,
Which one are you going to do? Right. And that's where the buy-in really comes in. It's not me trying to convince them like, hey, please believe me. I've been playing basketball all my life. I know what I'm talking about. Come on, man. Let's do it. I'm the coach here. It's like, no. Don't believe me. I want you to look at the data. I want you to look
right.
at the charts that we're doing. And this is what you're doing. And it's working. Yeah, it's effective. But let's compare that to the recommendations from what I'm suggesting or from another coach is suggesting and how we're implementing it. And let's let that decide. So I'm taking myself out of the equation to where I'm not having to have that battle with them, to where we can get that behavior change.
Yeah, you're just bringing in the facts of what your science and your data shows.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So does that tie in with analytics at all, or not so much? Analytics is more so number based, and also it does. I guess you could honestly tie in with analytics because it does have a lot to do with the behavior. Because you
Yeah.
break it down and you look at it from a science standpoint of, well, if I have this player on the court with this guy, number wise, I'm seeing this, which is basically what you're saying. It's data. It's all it
Hmm.
is number wise, this is what I'm seeing. So
Yeah.
do you feel like you could tie into that, or is that something that you would be interested in tying into?
That is exactly what we do. Everything is numbers based with us.
Right.
So the type of training that we do, I kind of touched on it earlier, but I'll kind of get more in detail right now. Is we do fluency training basis, right? Fluency based training, to where we set a timing for how many times you have to do something correctly versus incorrectly, and we use that to plot on our chart, which we use what's called a standard acceleration chart.
Hmm.
And I wish I had one loaded up. I can share it on here if we had the option to. But what that does is that allows us to look at the frequency of how often is this skill occurring correctly within game time like conditions,
Gotcha.
right? So what we're able to do is chart and plot that over time to say, hey, we're seeing this increase in performance of a certain shot, free throw, dribble move, whatever it is, whatever behavior that we're looking at or skill that we're looking at. We chart that in our numbers. So we say, hey, we got correct and 3 incorrect. Tomorrow we had 6 and 2. The day before, then the day after that, we got 7 and 1. And after that, we got 8 and 0, right? 8 corrects, 0 incorrects, right? And then from there, we then set our mastery level criteria. So we're not done once he hits 8 or he or she hits 8. We say, okay, hey, we need this to sustain over time, right? So then we will switch up our intervention and say, okay, hey, we've met mastery level. Now we got to meet retention and sustainability. And so then that's where the fluency and the mindless sort of natural performance really kicks in. But the whole time we are tally data, we do frequency count, we do um, duration, which is the time, however long something takes, right? So if we're looking at all 5 players on the court, we'll say, okay, hey, we need to get into our offensive set much quicker than we had been before. When the
Mhm.
when the point guard brings the ball up and he calls out the play, it shouldn't take us more than 3 seconds to get into our set. So we'll use that 3 second criteria and intervene on that to say, okay, hey, our baseline is showing that it's taking you guys 5 to 7 seconds. That's too long. All right, we're talking about NBA level sets. You only got 24 seconds on the shot
Yeah.
clock. That takes you already down to 16, 15 seconds. So now you don't have opportunity for a second rebound, for a rebound putback, or a second chance to kind of get back into a set. You really have to execute. So that's another thing that we look at is the duration side of it, right? And then tying it back into what I was saying earlier, right? Looking at our behavior history, if we not yeah, but because we are charting everything and we're basing it off of numbers and we're using the measure, right, acceleration, that is frequency count over time, right? The acceleration rate is the best predictor for future performance, right? So if we have a chart where we see this progression, right, going up, we can then say, okay, the next game, we can confidently predict he or she's going to perform at this level.
Right.
Whereas if it's like this, right, it's going to be right there. And if it's like this, it's going to be right there. And that's the benefit of the standard acceleration chart, is because it's standardized across all performance and across all measures, opposed to your regular percent correct chart, right? That's your regular, XY graph,
Right.
0 to 100. You can manipulate those axes, no problem, and you can get your perfect increase in slope, right? But it's it's not the best predictor of performance because what you're looking at is the variability of percentage. Sorry, you're looking at the variability of the opportunity of this occurring, opposed to did it actually occur or not, along with the rate of acceleration across time to allow you to then predict future performance. So the type of graphing and the type of charting that we use really allows us as scientists, coaches, and trainers, whether we're on the basketball court or if we're looking at running times, right? We can say, hey, in the past, you performed this well. If everything stays consistent and equal, I can I can put all my money on you're probably going to perform at this level or somewhere around this level with a certain deviation. Um, and that's why we base everything off of numbers. So we do break down the behavior and we determine a measure for each of the skills to where we can all get agreement on what to count as a correct and what to count as an incorrect. And what we're looking at is we want to make sure that our corrects are shooting up and our incorrects are shooting down.
Yeah.
If we can do that, that allows us to make those predictions, that allows us to get the progress, and then allows us to teach those skills or that performance at a level to where we can maintain it across time, and sustain it as well.
So, how is your approach when you're going at it and saying, "Hey, I'm seeing some things, I'm seeing some negatives that we need to address. We need to approach this in a way that we can make it conducive for both parties, so to speak." So if you're meeting, let's say you're meeting with a coach, and
Hmm.
I'm going to reference back to that high school in St. Louis.
Yes.
You're meeting with this coach and you're saying, "Hey, I'm noticing some behaviors that need to be addressed, or some of the, negative things that we can easily fix and work on." What is your approach to that? Because most people, especially, I mean, you played ball.
Hmm.
So most people are very like passionate about coaches, or
Yep.
passionate about what they do or what they teach or what they coach. I mean, for us, we had the Princeton offense, which
Mm-hmm.
didn't really suit us too well, but that's neither here nor there. But I mean, like, really though, like, what is the approach? Like, how do you go about? I mean, obviously, you're gonna get the respect that you deserve, being the fact that
Mm-hmm.
you're going in and they already initiated having you on board. But just explain that.
Yeah. So the way that we would do that is first we have to identify, right, if the person as the behavior analyst that's coming in, does that individual have the competency to actually make those type of suggestions, right, or recommendations.
Mhm.
So let's say for me personally, if I was to get hired on by a rugby team, right, I have zero experience in rugby, right, with me coming in and saying, hey, I think you guys need to do A, B, C, and D, that's out of my lane right there, right? That's outside the scope of my competency.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do then is say, hey, I see that you guys need some help. Hey, coach, what do you see that you would like to get better on? And then what does that look like? And then how soon do you need it done?
Right.
Right. So as a behavior analyst, it's it's really about identifying what the team needs, not necessarily what I think they need. Right. So even down to basketball, right? I have experience with basketball, but even if I do go and work with the team, I'm not going to say, oh, hey, coach, check this out. I got what you guys need. No, like, yeah, I know the game. I can probably recognize some deficits, but when I'm going to go to the coach and I say, hey, coach, hey, tough game tonight. I saw, you guys had a lot of turnovers. Maybe you guys didn't get into the offensive sets the way that how quick you like to do. But let's see how we can turn this around. What are some things that you notice that we can work on? What is direction that you want to take the team? Because just like you said, right, they have their own plan and their own vision,
Yeah.
and that's the way that it should be, right? We are like the strength coaches, the assistant coaches, the shooting coaches, whatever it is, right? So if the head coach said, hey, I need my shooting guard to be able to make 15 footers, regardless, I don't care about 3-pointers, I don't care about corner threes, I don't care about none of that. He needs to be able to make 15 footers. I'm gonna say, great, no problem, coach. Let me put together a behavior plan. Let's collect baseline data. Let's figure out an intervention. Let's figure out these contingencies under which we can get them to practice hard enough to maintain this performance over time. That's where I come in. I am the behavior guy that comes in and introduces behavior interventions, not necessarily recommendations on how to shoot the ball, where he should be shooting the ball, or whatever the case is, right? I bring in that science. So a lot of it is essentially establishing that relationship and saying, hey, I'm here for you, coach. Like, you are my boss type of thing.
Right.
And that's where we fall in line within that scope. And then over time, right, we get to learn who the coach is, we learn who the team is, and we'll say, hey, you know what, coach? I'm starting to notice that every time he pulls up for the 15-footer, they're doubling him. Why don't we work on him hitting some corner threes so he can kind of lag back and stay right there to kind of spread open the defense, right? And if they agree, yeah, let's work on it. If the coach is like, nah, I really like what we got going here, let's do that. No problem at all, coach. We'll keep going. We'll keep going with what we're going with. Do you have any other recommendations that you guys want us to really focus on? Yeah, we got this, and this. Cool. I'll throw in my behavior stuff. Let's make it happen. So a
Right.
lot of it is us following the lead of the coach because they are the head of that program or that team.
Absolutely.
So I'm not making those type of recommendations for a basketball or sports team per se. However, for the health and wellness and nutrition stuff, right, we do have certified nutritionists on staff. And so if we're working with our neighbor, right, or whoever, then in that situation, right, we are the content experts, right, as a
Yeah.
certified nutritionist, certified personal trainer, certified strength coach, whatever it is, right, we will then put together, okay, hey, let's look at how well you're eating now. What does that look like? Based on my recommendations from a certified nutritionist, I think you need to introduce this many grams of proteins, this many grams of carbohydrates, sorry, carbohydrates, and then this many grams of fats or whatever, right? And then from there, we have our recommendations. And then we would then pull in the behavioral procedures to help build those better behavior patterns and break those bad habits and get them out of late night stacking, based on the example I was using earlier, and get them into a more healthier, more natural routine that's going to be kind of effortless, honestly, right? Because a lot of these diets and these fads, some of them can, make you, starve yourself. You're eating nasty food or imitation food.
Eating cardboard.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm not saying it doesn't work. Some people enjoy it and it works out for them and they're able to have those beach bodies or whatever. But there's a huge majority of folks that just don't want to do that. They don't have any interest in doing that. And so what we do, like I said, we take the approach to where it's like, okay, we will meet you where you are, slowly intervene and make those changes to where you won't even recognize that you're eating much better or that you're building a better behavior pattern. But then over time, it just becomes effortless and it becomes mindless to
Yeah.
where it's just second nature. The same way, like I said, you get in a car, you see that green light, you don't even think twice. Your foot's already mashed on the gas.
Wow. Man, that stuff to me, and it's funny how, for my viewers that are not, real big sports fans or really don't understand some of the terminology that we were using, it's funny how sports and everyday life can tie in and go hand in hand, because the examples that you gave as far as your approach to the coach, and think about it in your everyday life, your approach to your kids, your approach to your peers, your approach as a man or a woman that's leading your house or leading your family, your approach has to come off as, okay, this is my forte, this is my lane to stand in, and this is what we're going to do, or knowing how to define your role and knowing what's going to get the best results, as you would say, right?
Exactly. Yeah, when it comes down to it, right? My expertise, my training, all my education and experience is all looking at just the science of behavior. And like I said, that can be athletics, that can be within the school setting, that can be within a business, right? If you're trying to do manufacturing, we're trying to increase sales, we're trying to figure out the logistics, whatever it is, right? That involves some form of behavior being completed by somebody, right? And so if that is the case and that's what we're trying to improve and get better on, I can intervene in that way. I'm gonna make sure I stay in my lane at the same time, but it will be that behavior change and manipulation that really that can really impact change. And like I said, I know I keep using it, but it's really about breaking those sort of unrecognizable bad habits.
Right.
And so I just really say focus on the behavior. How can we measure the behavior? How can we count the behavior? How do we chart that behavior? And then what is the best intervention to get the behavior to change? And it's not necessarily about making someone happier about the behavior, but it's just changing the physical occurrence of that behavior to where we can see more of it or less of it. And then over time, right, happiness comes with it, right? Because if you're doing something a lot and it's successful, right, that happiness is paired with it. Or if you're diminishing or decreasing something that you don't want to happen and you're successful at that, you're still going to be happy. Right. Just kind of like breaking those bad habits. So yeah, I'm just staying in my lane and really looking at how we can just really focus on measuring the behavior, changing the rate of behavior to where we can reach those ultimate outcomes.
Absolutely. So Wes, let's go ahead and tell my viewers, how can they contact you, or how can they follow you via social media? what's your handle or your contact information?
Sure. So I'm primarily on Instagram and Twitter. So my Instagram handle is Wes _ Lowery, bcba.athletics. You can find me on there. I have some pretty interesting content out on there where I'm just talking about the different procedures that I was kind of recommending and suggesting, some of the interventions and looking at the charts and stuff like that. So you can find me on there, contact me there. My email is wlowery, that's WLOWERY at Team ABA LLC. If you have any questions, if you just want to know more, or if you just want to get involved, shoot me an email and let me know. I'm always available and listening there. Our website, if you're interested in getting services with us, basketball training, football training, volleyball, soccer, any of that, we have our website, teamaballc.com. And that's where you can look at all of our different packages and see who's available. For our health and wellness, we do one-on-one nutrition. We do the acceptance and commitment therapy stuff I was talking about earlier, which is building the confidence or really helping you kind of get out of your own head. We have our website, teamabawellness.com. And that's, like I said, nutrition, personal training, and then the ACT stuff. And then lastly, we have, if you want to really learn more, sit in on some of the classes that I teach or watch some of the webinars or workshops that I've created, that would be teamabauniversity.com. You just go in there and log in. If you are within the field of behavior analysis, you will get BACB credit towards your certification and be able to use some of those potential hours as well to be able to sit for the exam if you wanted to be able to collect BCBA hours also. So check out those websites, shoot me an email, or follow me on Instagram, and I'll chat with you and we can figure it out from there.
And definitely shoot that contact over to me. I will post it definitely on the podcast page on Facebook and as well on my personal Instagram as well for you. Man, once again, brother, I totally appreciate you coming on and taking the time out. I know that it's, not easy having to work and be a father, and I commend you on that, man. And
Appreciate it.
man,
Oh, one more thing. Sorry. We also have, I just remember, sorry, we're launching a new health specialist certificate course.
nice.
I believe in January. So we put that together. It's going to be a 6 weeks course. And we're very, very, very lucky to have a registered dietitian on there that's going to be helping teach the course, and a nurse practitioner as well, helping and really bringing in the not bringing in, but like collaborating alongside with the science of behavior, but also with that with the experience and education from the nurse practitioner, from the health side, we're looking at that, but then also from a dietitian. So that course is on the website, teamabauniversity.com. You can sign up for that class. It's just a 6 weeks course if you just want to learn more about how to implement within your own practice of health and wellness or any personal training stuff, while introducing a lot of the those behavior procedures. And that would include the motivation, looking at the contingencies, looking at how to chart, how to measure, because anything that you want to get done has to get measured. Anything that you want improved, you need to measure it, right? You need to write it down and you need to track it, whether it's through a daily diary or on a chart or anything like that. And what we do and what we're going to do in that course is really going to really dive deep into the health, medical, dietitian side of it, and how we can incorporate the science of behavior analysis in improving lives for those clients as well. So, and then lastly, sorry, I know I keep saying lastly stuff.
No, it's on the website, correct?
Yeah. It's on the website, but this last little bit won't be on the website. Sorry. Next week I'm hosting a presentation for Queen's University out in Ireland. So if you want to learn more or see just more content in regards to how this can be applied into health, wellness, and in sports. There is a link on my Instagram page. You can go in there, register. It's free to sign up for that presentation. That's going to be hosted next week on the 15th, and it's for Queens out in Ireland. So super excited about that.
Man, definitely send that link to me as well, because I definitely want to check it out. And I have some other people that I know will totally be interested as well in this. But Wes, man, once again, my brother, I really do appreciate it. And we will be catching up soon. And I support you in whatever I can do or whatever platform I can lend to help
Thank you.
spread your message or keep you going. Believe me, man, that's what we're here for. And to all my viewers and everybody, I appreciate y'all taking the time out, hearing my brother and what he has to offer. And don't forget, hit him up. This young man will definitely take the time out to share his knowledge with you. Make sure to apply the knowledge. Don't just take it in and don't do anything with it. Apply it. It's going to help you. It's not doing anything but helping you. So, my brother, once again, I appreciate you, man. And we'll definitely have to do a part 2 as well. I got some people I need you to talk to, because I think what you do will tie in with what they do, and we'll be able to make some things happen.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I'm open. I'm looking to connect and grow and learn. And then lastly, man, thank you. I really appreciate you allowing me to come on and talk to your community, and just share what I'm passionate about. So, thank you again. I couldn't be more excited and more honored. So thank you.
Already. All right, guys, and with that, that'll wrap up this episode. I will see you guys next week. Everybody, stay healthy, stay blessed, and holla.